Wrapping her in a protective embrace, I led her back into the light, back to the happy celebration. The passage from dark to light was symbolic, moving from danger to safety. I felt my mood lighten with each step. We stepped back onto the dance floor, under the watchful eyes of 10 vampires. Tanya's gaze was critical and very curious. She had picked up on the stench of more werewolves, listening to their snaps and snarls, and began to second-guess her previous apology. When my eyes caught hers, she lowered her gaze demurely, and her thoughts became unreadable, as if a fog had swept across her mind. While I was feeling relief, Bella was still stiff in my arms. Her brow was drawn down, and her lips were pressed together. She was unusually pale. "Are you—" "I'm fine." Her voice was firm, but she was anything but fine. I knew immediately that she was heaping the blame of everything that had transpired on her own narrow shoulders. "I can't believe I did that. What's wrong with me?" she continued. "Nothing is wrong with you." Physically, she seemed to be okay, but emotionally, my goodwill gesture had backfired more horribly than I could have imagined. Had I really considered destroying her friend right in front of her, on our wedding day? Now that the immediate danger was gone, my rage was being replaced with self-disgust. I had no more control than Jacob, a 17-year-old boy, and his fears, his accusations, were they really so misplaced? Weren't those the very same visions that haunted me every day and night? Those mental images forced me to pull away every time I wanted to lean closer, demanded that I stop the kiss or the caress before my brittle self-control could be tested too far. I lived each moment with Bella on a knife's edge, with fear and desire pulling me desperately to one side then the other, and I was not the only one suffering. Bella did not realize that I heard the strain in her voice and felt the tension in her shoulders whenever I pulled away. She did not know how my heart ached when she lowered her eyes to conceal her constant disappointment. Now that our honeymoon loomed before me, I questioned whether I had been too cautious. Her blood was no longer a temptation to me, although her scent still scorched my throat like a firebrand. However, my physical need for her was barely controlled, and had not abated one bit. I had hoped to be somewhat desensitized, but if anything, it was stronger and more forceful than ever. I was wrong to have promised to try. Learning to control my diabolical thirst around humans had taken years, decades of self-control and stringent focus. How could I hope to subdue my base physical urges in just a few short months? How could I hope to fulfill my promise without losing control when I had never seen her body or touched her intimately? I knew from the things I saw and heard in the minds of countless people that I was unprepared for the sensations of smell, sight, touch, and sound that I was sure to experience. Would she forgive me if I told her I couldn't do it? But I promised. I said I would try. Try. "It's over. Let's not think of it again tonight." I was startled from my reverie by her firm tone. I felt her eyes searching my face. "Edward?" I closed my eyes and leaned my forehead against hers with a silent groan. Jacob is right. What am I thinking? "He is not. Jacob is way too prejudiced to see anything clearly." "I should let him kill me for even thinking of being with you like that," I muttered under my breath. "Stop it," she commanded authoritatively. Her hot hands were firmly holding my face, and eventually I forced myself to open my eyes. The power and conviction in her eyes was shocking. "You and me, that's the only thing that matters. The only thing you're allowed to think about right now. Do you hear me?" "Yes," I sighed. I could not say no to her. I tried, but it was impossible to shape the word. "Forget Jacob came. For me. Promise that you'll let this go." I stared into her eyes, looking for any sign of weakness or hesitation, but she gazed unflinching back into mine. She was my commander, the sovereign of my soul. I would do my best to please her. I would make her happy. I had no choice. "I promise." "Thank you. Edward, I'm not afraid." "I am," I confessed. "Don't be. By the way, I love you." She smiled her angelic smile, and my black emotions began to melt away. "That's why we're here." I ventured a small smile in return. "You're monopolizing the bride. Let me dance with my little sister. This could be my last chance to make her blush. Emmett cut in, loud, obnoxious, and grinning wickedly. Alice and Jasper want to talk to you. I reluctantly relinquished her hand to my brother, smiling a little as he whirled her around at a dizzying speed. Jasper and Alice stood back from the crowd. Jasper's face was set and tense. The distilled hatred and anger that Jacob felt for me had set his nerves on edge. He stood close to Alice, protectively shadowing her every move. With a tense jerk of his head, he gestured to a dark figure, black and thick with shaggy fur, which hovered several paces into the trees. Sam. I approached the alpha wolf cautiously, trying to sense his thoughts and mood, but they were tightly controlled. Standing at arm's length from his gigantic form, I was struck again with the wonder of the shapeshifters. Their bodies, though enormous, were tightly packed bundles of muscle and sinew. His fangs glistened razor-sharp in the twinkling light. Fangs out, with the rest of his body, became a carefully contrived, highly efficient killing machine. Sam's eyes were level with mine, calculating and cold. Images flickered through his mind, interlaced with the central essence of his existence, to protect his land and his people. Every sense told him that I was the enemy, but he subjugated his instincts to a higher reason, forcing himself and his pack to give us space and honor the generations-old treaty. I wish to thank you for lifting the treaty boundaries so Seth could attend the ceremony. He was honored to be your guest tonight, but the ceremony is over now. He will not cross the boundary line again. Thank you. I understand. We were grateful for his presence. I felt there was more. Sam would not have appeared so tightly controlled if this was the entirety of his message. Finally, I heard the words flowing freely from his thoughts. Jacob has been subdued, barely. I almost lost 2 members of my pack tonight. While I cannot place the blame for this incident on you and your family, your presence is the very power beneath the turmoil. Tonight was just a hint of what will come if things end badly. I am here to warn you. His gaze intensified, and his thoughts were clipped jabs in my mind. The treaty was almost broken tonight. If you or any member of your family harms a human being in any way, we will have no choice but to act. We are, and always will be, watching you. My jaw was set. I did not trust myself to speak. Instead, I dipped my head in understanding, turned on my heel, and made my way back to my siblings. I repeated the conversation for them, as Jasper stared menacingly over my shoulder into the woods. 4 pairs of eyes and 4 heavy heartbeats thudded in the night. Seth was not present, and I hoped he was with Jacob. The 4 wolves that watched us from the shadows waited for several more minutes before Sam gave the command for them to return to their territory. They would not return again unless invited. Judging by the stiff postures and raging thoughts of my family, that was not likely to happen soon. From the outskirts of the human congregation, I watched Bella twirl around the dance floor with a long succession of partners, friends of her father, the pediatrician from the hospital, classmates from school. They were all in awe by her demure beauty and graceful steps. She was finally relaxed, showing every evidence of enjoying herself. "Let's not think of it again tonight," I promised. Her gentle blushes and sweetly curving smile were like a balm, cooling my anger and soothing my nerves. The current song drifted to a close, and I stepped to her side quickly, cutting off 2 prospective partners. My healing was complete when she melted into my arms, welcoming me with a radiant smile. She rested her head against my chest, the first signs of fatigue curving her shoulders and slowing her steps. "I could get used to this." "Don't tell me you've gotten over your dancing issues," I teased. "Dancing isn't so bad, with you. But I was thinking more of this, of never having to let you go." Her arms tightened around me, infusing me with her luxurious heat. "Never," I agreed.